Have you ever finished last? Quick show of hands for anyone who is willing to admit it. Quite a few. Well, I have finished last. I entered a swimming race a few years ago, an open water swimming race, before it was cool, and I finished last. With a few foolhardy friends, we donned our wetsuits, put on our goggles and our caps, and we entered the cool waters of Belfast Lough, which you may or may not choose to think is a good thing, and we started swimming. You already know the ending to this story, which is me finishing last, and apart from a bit of a ribbing that I get from a few friends the odd time, it hasn't bothered me that much, honest. But what if I told you we are all currently finishing last? You see, we live in the land of the Irish elk, grizzly bears, grey wolves, and of course the great auk, or at least we used to. All of these animals used to roam these shores are now extinct to Ireland. And before you scoff at the thought of some of these amazing, charismatic megafauna, is the term that we use, before you scoff at the thought of meeting some of those, just think of what that might look like if you encountered one of those species in our landscape today. As you pause for thought further, I'm going to draw your attention to the Biodiversity Intactness Index, something you might not have heard of. The index is used as a way to calculate the amount of nature that a country has lost, and it ranks countries from 1st to 240th. The Biodiversity Intactness Index, which is easy for me to say, ranked Northern Ireland and Ireland 12th and 13th from bottom out of the amount of biodiversity that we have lost. That's position 228th and 227th out of 240 countries. So we're the lowest in the G7 and the relegation zone, I guess, for want of a better term. Better still, the State of Nature report, which was released last year and is released every 3 years, stated that 12% of species in Ireland that have been assessed are at risk of extinction. So to take these 12 lovely VIPs here, and if we think of maybe there's 100 people in this room, these 12 people are at risk of going extinct. So if we as a collective think that this is, sorry folks, a bad thing, one of my colleagues is in there as well, so if we think this is a bad thing, we would probably all collectively try and do something about it. So that is a sobering thought. 12% of species in Ireland and Northern Ireland potentially going extinct. That includes things like 97% of our wildflower meadows disappearing in the past 50 years. Species like the basking shark, the Irish damselfly, and of course the much loved puffin potentially going extinct within our lifetime. So are you happy enough to think that some of those species might just be available for future generations in storybooks and in folklore? Or would you like to see those species be available for everyone to enjoy in the future? Lough Neagh was a real clarion call in the past summer. All of our focus was on Lough Neagh for a while as we all were disgusted by the blue and green algae that appeared there. The issues affecting Lough Neagh are long-term and they're complex and they're going to take a long time to fix. But it was clear that the impact of Lough Neagh was broad. It impacted people's health and well-being, it impacted people's business, it impacted nature and wildlife. And it made me think, if this is how we treat one of the jewels in the crown of our nature, how are we actually valuing nature? Not very highly, it might seem. And you might think, so what? So what if we don't have basking sharks in the future or Lough Neagh is green? What has nature ever done for me? Well, at the end of the day, nature is the very air that we breathe. It's the food that we eat. It's the water that we drink. And it's a source of inspiration for everyone. John Muir, who's one of the modern fathers of conservation from, when I say modern, a few hundred years ago, puts it like this. Everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and give strength to body and soul. In my introduction, you heard that I've been working in conservation now for a while. It's about 15 years, actually, which is quite scary to hear. And I know that conservation works. I'm committed with my colleagues to securing a future for your kids and for mine. And I can tell you with reassurance that my conservation colleagues, a lot of the time without ego and recognition, are working hard to save threatened species and habitats in ways that are seen and unseen. My passion in particular is campaigning, and I know again that campaigning works. The RSPB, who I work for, was birthed out of campaigning. One of their founders, Emily Williamson and friends, founded the RSPB off the back of working to prevent the illegal trade of plumage. See, women were wearing feathers from exotic species on their hats, and that was driving the extinction of a certain species of birds. Their cause gathered popularity and pace, and that eventually ended up in the piece of legislation through Westminster, which was the Importation of Plumage Prohibition Act 1921, which I'm sure you're all very aware of. Local success has continued, and fast forward to today, many of you have campaigned with me on issues such as water quality, forestry, and maybe more recently, when Stormont was up and running, the Climate Change Act. From the top down, we need policy and legislation to drive conservation at scale, because that locks in benefits for everyone at the broadest scale. From the bottom up, conservation success happens at a much more local level, through individuals, through projects, and through communities wanting to improve their local areas or wanting to improve the plight of a certain species or habitat. Conservation works. I've seen it. I've seen it in peat bogs, in the uplands, where people are working to restore peat bogs for the benefit of climate change. A restored peat bog sucks in carbon out of the atmosphere, and it improves the natural filtration of water for everyone's benefit. We have seen it through the reintroduction of red kites in County Down, who were hunted to extinction over 200 years ago, now brought back for everyone to enjoy, spreading from County Down and beyond. We have seen it on Rathlin Island through the restoration of habitat, thanks to the local community there, volunteers and conservation staff who have brought corncrake back from extinction in Northern Ireland. The corncrake is a small bird that spends its summers in the DRC and Tanzania and its winters in those places and flies to the summer to Rathlin Island and other places. That doesn't sound like a bad way to spend the summer. And I've seen it through the conservation of curlew in the Antrim Hills in Fermanagh. Curlew is a species of bird that has been particularly hard hit in recent years. It has declined by 83% since the late 80s. So if we don't do something soon for this species, if we don't throw the kitchen sink at it, it will disappear. We are working with farming heroes in those landscapes to ensure that those species can be enjoyed for future generations. Conservation staff are getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go out and find nests for these species to ensure that they are protected, to ensure that chicks have the best chance of fledging and the best chance of future breeding. This is a curlew chick. This was taken by our conservation manager, Neil Warnick, who stopped the car to watch this chick cross the road. So why did the curlew chick cross the road was the title of his email when he shared it around. We still don't know the answer, but I think it was to get to its mother. So they're using that information then that they're getting up and collecting to work alongside farmers to ensure that farming and conservation can work hand in hand. There are more examples from youth climate activists to people recording bats and butterflies and other species. Conservation works, but we need more of it. And maybe you're thinking and feeling a bit overwhelmed about the amount that maybe needs done and maybe the position that you're in to maybe do something about it. So what now? What do we do from here? I wanted to just share 3 bits that I think everybody could do to help restoring nature in Northern Ireland and beyond. First of all, business. We live in a disposable convenience society. where products are produced and consumed as fast as they are put on the shelves. We all know the mantra, reduce, reuse, recycle, and we often just go to the end bit of that and feel good about putting our plastic bottle in the blue recycling bin. We forget about the first two bits, reduce and reuse. Refraining for consumption or indeed using sustainable products is a radical act, and that is something that we can all do. If you're in a business or a business owner, have you thought about hiring a director of nature or nature and climate experts onto your board of advisors to ensure that you stay ahead of the curve? Consumers are becoming a lot more aware of what is greenwash and what isn't, and it's really important that business steps up and takes responsibility. Second, maybe this is ironic given where we're at, but meet your MLA and MP. Democracy is not a spectator sport, it is a participatory event. And I think it is vitally important, as we get into maybe an election year, that people go and meet their politicians to talk about the importance of restoring nature in Northern Ireland and beyond. The issues that you might focus on: 30% of biodiversity is lost through land use change as a result of agriculture, 20% is lost as a result of natural resources and exploitation, and 14% is lost as a result of climate change, and that is likely to grow. So if you were going to go and meet your MLA, those might be the things that you would focus on. And if you are going to do that, I would love to chat to you afterwards. No talk on the natural environment is complete without a quote from Sir David Attenborough. So I love this one. No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. So lastly, I think, make 2024 the year of experiencing nature once again and looking at it through different eyes. Learn one new species, learn how to identify one new mammal, learn how to identify one new wildflower. Go to your nearest nature reserve, go to your nearest protected area, get lost. Maybe tell somebody first, but get lost in the woods, climb a mountain, do all those things to see how you could potentially connect and experience nature again, and then you will be better placed to then do something about it in the future. To finish then again with David Attenborough, so to restore stability to our planet, therefore, we must restore its biodiversity and its nature. The very thing we have removed, it is the only way out of this crisis that we ourselves have created. And it's my aspiration today that you've maybe heard a wee bit more about what it means to restore nature in Northern Ireland and beyond. And you leave with hope, knowing that some people are doing something about it, and that you too can do something about it too. Thank you.